Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading Srimad-Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, Chapter 15, Text 28. You don't have to be afraid of us, Dice. You can.
No, it's because I have to leave like
Oh, okay.
in a couple of minutes. I didn't want to be so I don't disturb you.
Okay.
I have to leave. So I'm here.
Okay, so 1:15:28. Sutta uvacha.
Sutta Uvacha.
Evam chintaya yojishno.
Evam Chintayata Jishno.
Kṛṣṇa pada saroruham.
Krishna Pada Saroruham.
Sauhardena tigadhena.
Sahardena Tigatena.
Shantasid vimala matihi.
Shantasid Vimala Mitahi.
Sutta uvacha.
Sutta Uvacha.
Evam chintayato jishno.
Evam Chintayato Jishno.
Kṛṣṇa pada saroruham.
Krishna Pada Saroruham.
Sauhardena tigadhena.
Sahardena Tigadena.
Shantasid vimala matihi.
Shantasid Vimala Matahi.
Sutta uvacha.
Sutta Uvacha.
Evam chintayato jishno.
Evam Chintayato Jishno.
Kṛṣṇa pada saroruham.
Krishna Pada Saroruham.
Sauhardena tigadhena.
Sahardena Tigadena.
Shantasid vimala matihi.
Shantasid Vimala Matahi. Sutta Uvacha.
Sutta uvacha.
Evam
Translation. Sutta Goswami said, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. Purport. Since the Lord is absolute, deep meditation upon him is as good as yogic trance. The Lord is non-different from his name, form, qualities, pastimes, entourage, and specific actions. Arjuna began to think of the Lord's instructions to him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only those instructions began to eliminate the tinges of material contamination in the mind of Arjuna. The Lord is like the sun. The sun's appearance means immediate dissipation of darkness or ignorance, and the Lord's appearance within the mind of the devotee can at once drive away the miserable material effects. Lord Chaitanya has therefore recommended constant chanting of the name of the Lord for protection from all contamination from the material world. The feeling of separation from the Lord is undoubtedly painful to the devotee, but because it is in connection with the Lord, it has a specific transcendental effect which pacifies the heart. Feelings of separation are also sources of transcendental bliss, and they are never comparable to contaminated material feelings of separation. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Svaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatardine Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Sutta Goswami said, "Thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination." So Srila Prabhupada starts off this purport by pointing out that Krishna is absolute, and deep meditation upon Krishna is as good as yogic trance. So this is Krishna's last instruction in the 6th canto of Bhagavad-gītā, the 6th canto, the 6th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā. The 6th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā in instruction by Krishna to Arjuna on the process of Ashtanga Yoga, or Dhyana specifically. And after giving an overview of the Ashtanga Yoga process, Krishna's final point about yoga is that one whose mind is completely absorbed in Krishna, such person is at the highest level of samadhi, and they are the highest yogi. So this is the point that Prabhupada starts off by pointing out. And actually, the very essence of the Krishna consciousness movement is to absorb the mind in thinking of Krishna, particularly to absorb the mind in loving sentiments towards Krishna. In Srila Prabhupada's lecture on this verse in Los Angeles in 1973, I believe it was, that's the very first thing he says in talking about this verse. The essence of the Krishna consciousness movement is to absorb the mind in loving sentiments towards Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada explained in another lecture that he gave in Los Angeles, I believe maybe 1970 or 1969, something like that, that he said this term Krishna consciousness, he took it from a very specific verse that is quoted in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta Madhya Lila, chapter 8, verse 70. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is there quoting from Padyavali, which is a compilation of verses that was made by Srila Rupa Goswami and composed by Srila Rupa Goswami. So this is a very famous verse, one of those verses that I think everyone should try to memorize. It's very sweet. And so the verse goes, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matihi Kriyatam Yadi Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Laulyam Apimulyam Ekalam Janma Koti Sukritarna Labhyate. So Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matihi. So Prabhupada said this is the translation of Krishna consciousness. This is where he got the term Krishna consciousness from. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matihi, to absorb the mind in loving sentiments towards Krishna. Not just loving sentiments in a general way, but in a particular rasa. So this is what the essence of the Krishna consciousness movement is. And how is this Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matihi possible? Well, Srila Rupa Goswami instructs us in this verse. He says, pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. So just by engaging in material piety, one cannot have it. That also means piety in terms of Krishna, if you just have a ritualistic approach to Krishna or a pious approach. So how does one attain it? Prabhupada said in the lecture, it's such a nice thing, this Krishna consciousness. So if you want a nice thing, you must pay a price. So what is that price? The price is that it can be attained only by intense greed to obtain it. And then Rupa Goswami says, if it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. Or Prabhupada says, immediately. If it's in the market, immediately go and get it. So this is the price of Krishna consciousness, pure devotional service to Krishna, pure absorption of the mind in loving sentiments towards Krishna. We have to develop this greed for attaining it. And this point of absorbing the mind in loving sentiments towards Krishna is actually the central teaching of the Bhagavad-gītā as well. Krishna says this verse twice. There's two slight variations to the verse, but more or less he says the exact same verse twice in the Bhagavad-gītā. So chapter 18, verse 65, Krishna says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Another essential verse to learn. Krishna says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. So here we see Arjuna applying this point of manmana bhava, madbhakto, absorbing the mind in sentiments, loving sentiments towards Krishna, loving devotional sentiments towards Krishna, becoming Krishna's devotee. So without having absorption of the mind in Krishna, and this absorption of the mind in Krishna stemming from or sprouting out of the development of loving sentiments towards Krishna, devotional service simply becomes something mechanical or ritualistic. We might have all seen people who they go to the temple. Maybe they have some kind of family tradition of going to the temple, and they come in and they have their kind of ritual that they do. I've seen there's like something where they like touch their ears in particular spots and like their nose, and I'm not sure exactly where that comes from, but there's a whole like thing that they do, and then they leave. So that's good. There's nothing wrong with that per se, no fault in that. If one has some pious tendency, then one should apply that pious tendency towards Krishna. As Devamrta Maharaja said in one lecture that he gave in New Zealand, he said, if you have the sentiment that, oh, well, everyone should believe in God and, it's a nice thing to always be hearing about God and thinking about God, then Devamrta Maharaja said, that's good. But actually, Krishna consciousness means to go beyond that. Not just to have some sentiment towards thinking about Krishna, some kind of pious proclivity towards Krishna, but to actually try to understand what is it about Krishna that captivates the mind of Krishna's pure devotees. What is it about Krishna's instructions and his qualities that Arjuna, in this situation of great calamity, his best friend has just left the planet. And he also, as we read earlier in the chapter, he's like one of the greatest kshatriyas, glorified throughout the three worlds, literally. Even the demigods glorified him. And then he was overtaken by some, low-class thieves as he was going along the road, trying to give protection to vulnerable women. So Arjuna, Krishna says in the beginning of the second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā that for one who has been honored, to be dishonored is worse than death. So Arjuna has been honored so much been honored beyond anything that we can conceive of as Kali Yuga residents. And he's been dishonored by these low-class people. And so that's worse than death, according to Kṛṣṇa. But he's finding peace in absorbing his mind in the instructions of Kṛṣṇa and remembering his deep friendship with Kṛṣṇa. So this is what brings about true Kṛṣṇa consciousness. This is what brings about true devotional service. We have loving sentiments towards Kṛṣṇa that allows us to absorb our mind in thinking about Kṛṣṇa. Without thinking about Kṛṣṇa, without absorbing the mind in Kṛṣṇa, without having loving sentiments towards Kṛṣṇa as we do devotional service, we can get some partial credit for whatever mechanical activities we're doing, or maybe we have an instruction from our spiritual master. Of course, meditating on the spiritual master is also meditating on Kṛṣṇa, because the spiritual master is the external representation of Kṛṣṇa, as Uddhava says in the 11th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. It says that Kṛṣṇa appears within the heart as Chaitya Guru, as the super soul. He gives guidance from within the heart, and he also appears externally as the spiritual master, as the Acharya, and gives instruction through that way. So we might not have our mind absorbed in thoughts of Kṛṣṇa, but we might be absorbing our minds in thoughts of, I want to please my spiritual master. That's also good. But if one doesn't have that either, one can still get partial credit for whatever activities of devotional service that one is doing. Technically speaking, this is called agyata sukriti, that one unknowingly engages in some activity of devotional service towards Kṛṣṇa. And there is credit that one gets from that, and there is purification of the heart that one gets from that. There's one story that I heard from one sannyasi, one ISKCON sannyasi named Janananda Swami, I believe is his name. He's based in England. And he tells a story about how, I think it was in London, there was one young boy, 18 years old or so, who joined the Brahmacharya ashram. And his mother was very against him joining the Brahmacharya ashram and him being involved in Kṛṣṇa consciousness at all. I think she came from some kind of a Christian background. And so every single Sunday, she would come to the Sunday feast just to try to convince her son to leave. Every single Sunday, she would come just to try to get her son to leave. And somehow the devotees were nice to her whenever she would come, and she would be given some prasadam, and sometimes the devotees would get her to do a little devotional service. Of course, she wasn't thinking of it as devotional service. She was probably just thinking that, I'm doing something nice, these people who are being nice to me. And so then one Sunday she came again to try to convince her son to leave the temple. And I guess she arrived early to the Sunday feast. And so the devotees, or one devotee asked her, would you mind cleaning the windows of the temple? And so she agreed to do it, and very thoroughly cleaned the windows of this temple. And then she afterwards went to give the cleaning paraphernalia back to the brahmachari, and he asks her, so, how did it go? And she said, you know what? I've never felt happier in my entire life. I'm beginning to think that these are not ordinary windows. And the brahmachari is like, oh, what do you mean? And she says, I think that these are Krishna's windows. and then she became a devotee. So she wasn't doing pure devotional service. She was probably not absorbing her mind in thinking about Kṛṣṇa as she was doing these devotional activities, as she was being, asked to do these devotional activities. Maybe there was even some reluctance at some point to do these activities, but she got some partial credit for doing them, and thus her heart became purified, and Kṛṣṇa revealed himself to her so that she could become a devotee and make further progress. So, but if we want full credit for our devotional efforts, then our efforts should be done as an offering for Kṛṣṇa. Our mind should be absorbed in thinking about Kṛṣṇa as we are doing our activities, and we should be thinking about Kṛṣṇa's pleasure as we are doing whatever devotional activities we are doing. If we're cooking, we should be thinking about how Kṛṣṇa is going to enjoy this thing that I'm cooking. If we're chanting Hare Krishna, then we should be thinking about how we're aspiring that Kṛṣṇa might be pleased by our chanting, that Lord Chaitanya might be pleased by our chanting. If we are sweeping Kṛṣṇa's floors, then we should be thinking about how we hope to please Kṛṣṇa by sweeping these floors. Otherwise, without having devotional sentiments, we can engage in so many different kinds of activities, and we won't get the full result. For instance, we see in the example of Bhagavad-gītā itself, so many warriors fought in the battle of Kurukshetra. Not only Arjuna was there. We hear Arjuna asked to go in the middle of the battlefield and see. There's so many thousands and thousands of great warriors on both sides. And so many of these warriors heard what Kṛṣṇa told Arjuna, but although all of them heard this, and all of them, because they were in the association of Kṛṣṇa when they left their bodies, they all got liberation, all these warriors. But not all of them got the ultimate result that Arjuna did of being united in loving devotional service with Kṛṣṇa, because they were not all hearing and fighting with their mind absorbed in Kṛṣṇa. So this is the difference between Arjuna and the other warriors, and the difference between engaging in devotional activities mechanically or engaging in activities that are parallel to devotion, but not with a devotional activity or with a devotional mindset, versus engaging in actual devotional activities with an actual devotional mindset. And we can see so many examples throughout the Bhagavatam of devotees who are great exemplars of absorbing their minds in thinking about Kṛṣṇa as they are going about their activities. Particularly in the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, we see the highest perfection of this principle of engaging one's mind in loving sentiments towards Kṛṣṇa and engaging all of one's activities in trying to please Kṛṣṇa through one's activities. For instance, we see the example of Mother Yaśodā, that Mother Yaśodā, she was churning butter for Kṛṣṇa. Mother Yaśodā had seen how, and she had heard complaints from the other gopis, that Kṛṣṇa was always sneaking into other people's houses to try to steal the butter and the yogurt that was kept hanging in pots from the ceiling of these houses. And Kṛṣṇa was causing so much trouble for these other gopis if he wasn't able to steal the butter and the yogurt. Then he would urinate on the floor, or he would pinch the babies. So Mother Yaśodā, So Mother Yaśodā was thinking that Krishna must he must not be very satisfied with the yogurt and butter that is at her home. So Mother Yaśodā thought that she had better take the best milk from the best cows, and that she should personally take up the churning rod instead of the other gopis in her house churning the yogurt into butter. She thought, I'll personally do it to make sure that it's done to the highest level, highest standard. And so Mother Yaśodā was working so hard, and it's described that she was sweating, her hair was disheveled, she had garlands of flowers in her hair that were all sideways or falling out of her hair. And she was so lovingly meditating on Kṛṣṇa as she was doing this that milk was flowing from her breasts as she churned, and she was constantly singing about the beautiful pastimes and qualities of her son Kṛṣṇa. So this is what Kṛṣṇa is actually after. This is what attracts Kṛṣṇa. This is what is an irresistible draw for Kṛṣṇa, that the devotee is actually fully absorbed in sentiments of love towards him and engages in activities of devotional service that are motivated by and saturated by these loving sentiments towards him. And Kṛṣṇa becomes controlled by such devotees. And Kṛṣṇa tells us also in Bhagavad-gītā, chapter 9, verse 26, another very famous verse from the Bhagavad-gītā. He says, Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktiya prayachati tadaham bhaktyupahrityam ashnami pratyatatmanaha. Kṛṣṇa says that if one offers to him a fruit, a flower, a leaf, or even just water, with love and devotion in full consciousness of him, then Kṛṣṇa accepts such an offering. So one's offerings to Kṛṣṇa don't have to be elaborate. One doesn't have to offer Kṛṣṇa some very grandiose thing. One can offer him a fruit. Let's say fruits are not in season, then one can find a flower to offer Kṛṣṇa. Maybe flowers are not in season either, so you just find a leaf and offer a leaf to Kṛṣṇa. Maybe you're in Siberia in the winter and there's no leaves on the trees. I don't know, I've never been to Siberia, so especially in the winter. But maybe you're in a place where there's no leaves. So then you can even just offer water to Kṛṣṇa. But if you do it with love and in full consciousness of Kṛṣṇa, then Kṛṣṇa accepts this. And we see an example of this in the case of Duryodhana. Duryodhana, in addition to being known for being a very evil person and misguided by his own mind, contaminated mind and intelligence and ego. One of the things that he was known for was for putting on these great lunches. He would put on these like royal banquets. And so before the battle of Kurukshetra, Duryodhana thought that I'll get the favor of Kṛṣṇa by putting on this great royal banquet, this great lunch. I'll invite Kṛṣṇa over, and then I'll convince Kṛṣṇa to fight on my side in the battle of Kurukshetra, and then he thought I'll be able to win versus the Pandavas. But Kṛṣṇa was not interested in this lunch that was being offered by Duryodhana. On the other hand, we see in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam the example of Sudāmā Brāhmaṇa. He was an intimate associate of Kṛṣṇa. He was in the Brahmachari ashram with Kṛṣṇa under the instructions of Sandipani Muni in Mathura. And he was so impoverished that he was like a skeleton. His wife was like a skeleton. They couldn't find enough food to eat. And so his wife instructed Sudāmā Brāhmaṇa that, you're great friends with Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa is a prince in the palaces of Dvarka, so much opulence. You should go and beg charity from Kṛṣṇa. This is the duty of a Brāhmana, that the Brāhmana goes and asks for charity. Sudāmā was so humble that he was reluctant to ask anyone for anything. But she said, you should go and ask Kṛṣṇa for some charity. Kṛṣṇa is a kshatriya, you're a Brāhmana, this is proper. And Sudāmā was so impoverished that as he was leaving to go and see Kṛṣṇa, he didn't even have anything to bring with him to offer to Kṛṣṇa. Normally when you go and visit someone, you should bring some kind of gift, especially when you go and see Kṛṣṇa. If you visit the temple, it's said that you should always bring some gift. Maybe you pick a flower along the way, or bring some rice or some milk. So Sudāmā was thinking, I should bring something to offer to Kṛṣṇa when I arrive in Dvarka, but he didn't have anything to offer. So he begged from his neighbors and got some chipped rice, some poha. This is a very cheap thing, practically the cheapest thing that one can have. And when he arrived, Kṛṣṇa received Sudāmā Brāhmaṇa so nicely, even sat Sudāmā on the bed that was used by him and Rukmini. And Kṛṣṇa personally washed Sudāmā Brāhmaṇa's feet. And then Kṛṣṇa, being omniscient, because Sudāmā was thinking, I can't offer this chipped rice to Kṛṣṇa. He has in this palace, and why would he need this chipped rice from me? And so he was trying to hide it. But Kṛṣṇa, being omniscient, knew and said, you have something for me, don't you? You have some gift for me. Oh, no, I don't have anything. And then Kṛṣṇa forcibly took the chipped rice and started just eating this chipped rice raw, not even cooked. Because Kṛṣṇa found so much value in this because of the loving sentiment that was imbued in this chipped rice. So this kind of devotional activity, this kind of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, is the actual means by which one can attain shanti, one can attain peacefulness. If you ever go to India, you see so many people that they are wanting shanti, and so many gurus talking about shanti. But what does Kṛṣṇa say about shanti? In the Bhagavad-gītā, chapter 5, verse 29, is another essential verse for everyone to learn. Kṛṣṇa says that shanti is a side effect of absorbing the mind in thoughts of and understanding of Kṛṣṇa. So Kṛṣṇa says, Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantimirchiti. Says, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, in other words, the ultimate enjoyer, knowing me to be the supreme Lord and controller of all planets and all demigods, and knowing me to be the benefactor and well-wisher and most intimate friend of all living beings, suhridam, it means the most intimate friend. Someone who knows all of these things and is in full consciousness of all these things attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So we're seeing this in the case of Arjuna. that just by remembering Krishna's instructions and remembering their intimate friendship together, then Arjuna is attaining shanti. He's attaining relief from the miseries of separation from Krishna, which, of course, as I've explained and Prabhupada explains in this purport and other purports, it's not misery in the type of conception that we have of misery in the material world, but actually it's the highest pleasure because it brings about the greatest absorption in thinking of Krishna. So this shanti, this is a side effect of devotional service. But on the other hand, a pure devotee of Krishna is actually not thinking about Krishna with the idea of attaining relief from material suffering. The devotee is absorbed in thinking about Krishna because of his or her pure sentiments of love towards Krishna and because of wanting to execute the instructions of Krishna, wanting to please Krishna. This is what motivates the pure devotee to absorb their mind in thinking about Krishna. But for those of us who are not pure devotees, we can be reassured that if we truly understand that Krishna is the center of everything, that he is the supreme controller, the supreme enjoyer, the supreme friend, and we are his servants, then automatically our mind and our intelligence will become peaceful and we can overcome the pangs of this material world. And this is something that everyone in the world is afflicted by. Everyone is absorbed in the troubles and afflictions and disturbances of the mind and intelligence that come in this world. Practically, this is the sum and substance of this world, of the condition of the world. Everyone is full of disturbances within their mind and their intelligence and also their senses. So we can understand that instilling this knowledge within the hearts of people is the greatest welfare work. If we can convince people to take to the process of bhakti, to understand Krishna through bhakti yoga, as Krishna says also in Bhagavad-gītā, he says that Arjuna can understand the instructions that he's giving because Arjuna is a dear, intimate friend of his and a devotee. That's what allows one to understand who Krishna is. It's not by a mechanical process that one can understand Krishna, but by devotional service, one can understand Krishna. Krishna reveals himself to such a person because of his, Krishna is attracted to such a person's devotional service. So if we can convince people to take to this, then their afflicted heart can become settled. And this is the greatest welfare work. And actually, this is the central goal of the Krishna consciousness movement, the central goal of ISKCON, the central goal of BhaktiSF, is to give people the opportunity to hear and chant about Krishna. And then that allows them to have the dirty things of their heart cleansed to the extent that they can understand devotional service and they can start to understand Krishna and engage in devotional service and then become devotees and actually attain real relief from material suffering. Lord Chaitanya instructs this in the first verse of the Shikshashtaka. He says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. By chanting Hare Krishna, by hearing about Krishna, the very first effect is that it cleanses the heart of material contamination. And Bhavamaha Davagni Nirvapanam, it extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence, which we have been burning within lifetime after lifetime. So we should try to take to this process sincerely ourselves. We should be constantly, as much as possible, absorbing ourselves in hearing and chanting and remembering about Krishna. And in this way, we can find relief from the material suffering that we're all afflicted by. And not only that, but we can attain the highest goal of life. In the first chapter of the second canto of the Bhagavatam, we find Shukadeva Goswami answering Maharaj Parikshit's questions that he asked on the bank of the Ganges. Maharaj Parikshit asked most centrally, what is the duty of all people, especially one who is about to die? And in the first chapter of the second canto, Shukadeva Goswami describes many different processes of meditation and also different processes of devotional service. But Shukadeva Goswami advises that of all processes, the hearing and chanting of Krishna's glories, in particular the chanting of Krishna's holy names, is the best and surest process for success for all kinds of people. This is another one of those verses that everyone should learn. He says, Etan nirvidyamananam ichchitam akuto bhayam yoginam nripanirnitam harirnam anukirtanam. Says, the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who desire all material things, those who are free from all material desires, and those who desire liberation or yoga siddhis, says the doubtless and fearless way of success for all kinds of people is Harer Nam Anukirtanam, to chant the holy names of Krishna. So we see a great contrast. There's this sentiment that, there's many religious processes, there's many spiritual processes, but they all lead to the same goal. So Shukadeva Goswami is almost saying the opposite. He's saying that there are many different kinds of goals that one may be oriented towards, but all goals are supremely achieved by one central process, the chanting of the holy names. And if one engages in that process, that then not only does it bring success to these temporary and relative goals, these side goals, but it brings one the ultimate success of full absorption in devotional service. So this is the great gift that we have as devotees, aspiring devotees, and we can try to take to this process fully, and then we can get the kind of relief and full loving absorption and devotional engagement that we see in the example of Arjuna and the many other devotees who are going to come up in the Bhagavatam. So, if there are any questions or comments or complaints.
I appreciate this class a lot. I think this is something, exactly what I've been kind of struggling with. Like of devotional service kind of becoming mechanical. So I wanted to ask mostly for practical advice. Like I feel like when I lived away from devotees, I would look forward to taking the time to be with devotees, And like little moments felt very special, and I would seek them out. And then I feel like I'm feeling a little bit like burnout, where things like I get tired, or specifically I get really like anxious if I'm doing something wrong, or if I'm saying something like pronouncing something wrong, or cooking not to a certain standard, or like I feel like those are the thoughts that occupy my brain more so than anything else. So I'm not sure you've encountered this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first of all, we should make sure that we have association of devotees who are on the same level as us. In the Nectar of Instruction, the Upadeshamrita, Srila Rupa Goswami instructs that one should make friendship with devotees who are one's peers. And making friendship with them means that one is engaging in the 6 loving exchanges. One is giving gifts, accepting gifts, giving prasadam, accepting prasadam, and most importantly, one is revealing one's mind in confidence, and one is inquiring confidentially from one's friends. So I think that, at least my experience when I was a brahmachari, I would say that that last part was very sorely lacking. I can't speak to your experience, but just in my experience, that can often be lacking in having the opportunity to reveal one's heart confidentially and inquire confidentially from one's devotee friends. I think this is the opportunity to do this is very key in overcoming or persevering through the agitations of the mind and the intelligence and the senses that come up as one is attempting to be fully absorbed in devotional activities. And also, Prabhupada said that one should try to find, even if it's just one process of devotional service that one is especially attracted to, then one should focus on that process of devotional service or that devotional activity. One should become expert in that and really fully engage in that as much as possible. And by having that attraction to that activity, then that also helps to one to overcome the inertia or the resistance of the mind and the intelligence and the contaminated senses. And also to say that doesn't mean that one should not do the needful, right? If something needs to be done, if someone needs to clean the toilets, for instance, then that's what needs to be done. In life, one always has to have things that one does as a sense of duty. You might not be attracted to it on its own right, but you do it because it's the right thing to do. So, but nonetheless, you should try to find something that you are particularly attracted to. And also in regard to hearing, you should try to find some subject matter of Kṛṣṇa consciousness that you're particularly attracted to, and that you can engage yourself in absorption of as often as possible. Like for me, reading Caitanya-caritāmṛta and Caitanya-Bhagavatam brings so much enlivenment to hear and read these pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his great devotees. And another point is that in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā, Kṛṣṇa does instruct that one should be balanced in one's approach to any process of yoga. It says one should be balanced in one's work, one's recreation, one's sleep, one's eating. And by having a balanced approach, then one is able to persevere over time. So that's something I also experienced as a brahmachari, that there was often a lack of balance. There was this, kind of emphasis of push, push, push. And then you'd be shamed if you had a need for some kind of break from the constant push. I think even taking a break from a particular devotional environment from time to time to be in some other devotional environment for a short time is good, or visiting other temples from time to time, getting the association of devotees one ordinarily doesn't get the association of, especially advanced devotees. I think these are all keys that can be applied to help to overcome these kinds of things. I hope that's helpful. Anything else? Daniel or Shri, do you have any insights or questions? Hmm. So hear more about my time as a brahmachari. So yeah, maybe in another lecture I can try to integrate that. Yeah, that's a broad topic, but yeah, that's a good idea. Should share about more of my personal experiences in that regard. So thank you for the suggestion, Shri. Anything else?
I just want to say thank you. That was such a beautiful class. I feel so excited for the rest of my day now. I also thought maybe I would share that I was visiting my dad and my mom this weekend, and when I left my dad's house, he told me Hare Krishna.
Wow.
So I thought I didn't, it was like a surprise. I
Mm.
wasn't expecting it. He told me Hare Krishna.
Jai.
And then when I was eating out breakfast with my mother for Mother's Day, and I was praying before I was eating, and I opened my eyes and I saw my mother was also praying before she was eating.
Wow.
That was pretty nice.
Jai. Just by your transcendental association, your parents are benefited.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Anything else?
Thanks for another amazing class.
Hare Krishna. All right. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.